Hello everyone, welcome back again. One of our special episode on Amazon marketing Maverick tactics. If you don't know me yet, let me tell you about myself. I am Wan, a founder of MADCAPT Limited, which is basically one of best Amazon service-based agency that help brand to scale. And today we have a one more special guest on our episode, and he's going to share a really special insight on Amazon marketing and how you can scale your brand towards this potential growth. So please welcome our great guest, John. Hey, John, how are you?
Good. How are you? It's glad to chat with you, Azif. I've been looking forward to this on a holiday Monday here. So the what's it? No
Yeah,
rest for the
basically.
weary, I think is the saying, right?
Yeah, right. John, let's start with your brief background introduction. How you can start your journey in Amazon industry, and before that, what you are doing, and currently, how you proceeding your journey in Amazon industry.
Well, I won't bore everybody to tears if I went into my full story, take up half the podcast. But essentially, I've been in Amazon marketing exclusively for just over 10 years now. My total digital marketing experience background spans about 15 years. And I started as the director of marketing at a niche specialty device. It's called a training mask. I've been best friends with the founder of that since we were young, right? And so it was really cool to work together with him. He's since exited, yeah, a pretty good exit. So he's moved on to other things. But prior to that, this probably would have been in 2019. Um, I was doing some Amazon stuff on the side for some of Casey's friends and people that he'd recommended, and within a short period of time, my income was about the same doing that as I was being the director of marketing for him. And I thought Amazon was the future of e-commerce. And I think we've all been kind of proven right there. It's definitely taken over the internet. It's Godzilla in the room. And so I kind of doubled down on that. And so here I am today. And we focus on my agency Rainmaker focuses exclusively on health, wellness, and fitness brands, right? And so that's not a I didn't just arbitrarily pick that because I wanted to find a niche. That's actually who I am, and that's the blind share of my background pre-digital marketing. My degrees in health services administration and physical therapy. My first job out of high school when I was in college that I managed a GNC. I sold supplements for 4 years. Shortly after that, I managed a specialty high-end fitness retailer store for another 3 or 4 years, right? So, and I coach. My kids are in their teens now, and that's a big part of my life. So health and wellness and all that stuff is a big part of who I am, and I think gives kind of a unique view into that side of things. And I think not to go too far off the beaten path on this, winning on Amazon moving forward is going to be a lot harder than just knowing bid strategy and main image optimization and all of that stuff. And I think anybody who's watching that stuff today, or watching this today, I should say, whether you're an agency owner, a freelancer, or a brand owner, you're keenly aware of how hard Amazon is. So I think having industry knowledge in a space is definitely going to be, it's just something that I focused on. And I would recommend other agencies or freelancers to do the same, right? If they have an interest or a specialty, whatever segment it might be, is double down there and spend as much time there as you do learning about CPCs and CTRs and CBRs. So that's my story.
Perfect. So you almost have a decade experience in Amazon industry. So how do you proceed? How you do say about what the best thing as a freelancer do when they start their journey in Amazon industry? Like they wanted to join some agencies to gain experience, or they wanted to go and learn some courses to get experience about Amazon advertising, their tactic, etc. Or they wanted to get some guru or some mentorship to actually know how what's going on in Amazon space, and how they can explore, and how they become expert in the Amazon space. So what your experience in the past, and how you can give them advice for those beginner who wanted to start right now.
It's a great question. So point number one would be if you can do an internship, and it's something I'm going to be rolling out a program as well, just basic internship program. Some brands don't have a lot of capital. I would say before you dig into courses, I mean, definitely do all that stuff, but I wouldn't let that be my exclusive focus. If you want to watch content, there's a lot of great thought leaders and experts out there. They had years of experience that they shared. You want to spend time there. But I would say job number one is learning the business from the inside, as in learning the entirety of it, not just Amazon advertising. I'll talk about that. That's step number one. Step number two would be typically when you're first starting out and you're kind of looking around at the people that are successful, they've already, they've kind of put their stake in the sand, their flag in the air in terms of what they've done. So there's a ton of stuff on Amazon. There's a ton of personalities on it. There's a ton of people talking about it. There's a ton of agencies, probably as many agencies as there are Amazon brands. I don't know, a lot, right? So it's very, very competitive, right? So I'm not saying you can't win there because the industry is really, really established. What I'm saying is that if you're first starting out, you're kind of like 6 or 8 months in, understand that if you're going to go that road, it's a hard road, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a future on Amazon. And I'm not discouraging people from doing that. I'm saying that if you're going to go that way, there's a lot of extra things that you're going to have to do that's kind of outside the scope of the talking point in order to win them, right? So what you want to do is you want to lean into that overall Amazon experience. You want to find pain points of the brand. Look around at pain points of the industry. I actually had a great chat. This guy you probably talking about this. And so, what would a good example of that be? So, just like I niche down on health and wellness, you want to find pain areas that people suffer with in Amazon brands and agencies, because agency would be a really good focus to start. Compliance to me jumps out, right? Like that would be a really big pain point. I joked about flat files. I mean, Amazon operations beyond listing optimization, case management. Here would be a great one. So influencer marketing is kind of how do I want to say this? There's a lot of tools and platforms that do it, and it gets a lot of buzz around it. But really the best way to do it from my experience has been just get on TikTok and Instagram, type in a hashtag and just start beating the pavement, just guerrilla warfare style, like DMing people, right? And so I would say doing that for brands would be a really good way to do it. Look at ways to send external traffic. So I'm not like, there's probably a lot of other things that you can do, but get into that frame of mind where you try to carve out a service, a space where there's not a lot of people, right? We do the same thing. We tell our clients to do the same thing. We're looking at products. You don't want to drop launching a protein powder right now, probably not smart unless you have some type of revolutionary, form innovation or something like that. Like it's just too hard to do that. So use that same frame of reference, right? When you're moving out into the service sector. And I guess the last thing I want to say there is that one of the drawbacks to that is that it's not a well-beaten path. It's not clearly defined, right? So you're not going to find a lot of YouTube content and stuff like that on it. And that can be frustrating and it might be discouraging. But the good news there is that because the path isn't clear, that in itself is the opportunity. And if it's me, I would rather learn how to do it and build my own systems around something with no competitors, right? As opposed to running face first into a place where it's like it's elbow to elbow people. Very, very hard to win, right? And so Amazon advertising, Amazon marketing, standard Amazon services, yeah, that's clearly defined and you can win there, right? It's going to take a long time. Who knows how long it could take, and it's going to be hard, right? But there's lots of ways to win in Amazon and e-commerce and kind of the subspace that if you're new, I would kind of recommend probably looking at it that way.
Perfect. Yeah, you almost said everything correct, but I would like to know some very specific question about Amazon service business. You think is there some space for beginner who come in Amazon advertising side, or they wanted to jump on some other Amazon things like they wanted to explore Amazon sourcing side, they need to explore some designing side. Do you think there have some space for a newbies to come in Amazon advertising side, or they just wanted to explore something else?
Um, are you asking if I think that they should not do Amazon advertising, or is that basically what you're asking? I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I would
Sorry.
say, do you think is there have some space in Amazon advertising for newbies to come in this service space side, or they
Mm.
just wanted to explore some other service in Amazon industry?
Well, okay. So just because I guess that's how I look at things, because that's my frame. No matter what I'm doing, it's how I market. And Amazon's how I market in general. Is I try to avoid friction as much as possible, right? Because it's more money, it's more resources, it's more time, right? And so I there's still a big there's a big opportunity in Amazon advertising. There's a lot of money there, right? There's a lot of practically every brand runs Amazon advertising. There's tens of thousands of Amazon stores, if not millions of Amazon stores worldwide and stuff like that. But the thing that you need to keep in mind there, and I think this would be my probably, let's say, for example, you're like, no, this is the path I want to walk. I respect that because I like hard things like that. That actually motivates me. I think we have a talking point about this in probably a couple minutes we can get to, but so if how do I want to word this? Knowing that it's going to be that hard, what everybody else is doing, here's a good example. If you look at some of the really, really good, some of the top experts, Elizabeth Green, Destiny Bashan, Mina, and Mina talks about a variety of things. You look at, I got so many experts out there, I probably can't even name all that have big followings. What do they talk about? They talk about ACOS, they talk about tacos, they talk about negative targeting, right? And so you're going to make your posts about that. But I want to share something there, and this is a really, really important point if you're trying to win there. We need to keep in mind that people are not following them. Now, I'm not saying this to be mean, and I mean this with all humility, right? I'm not saying that like they know their stuff, but odds are people are following those people at this point, not because of what they're posting, but because of who they are. And I think that's a really, really important point to kind of surface here, right? And so when you're making posts and you're just studying negative, you're trying to get as proficient and as expert as you can in Amazon advertising, which is important. What I think a lot of you guys are going to find, if you haven't figured that out already, is that no matter how much you know about Amazon advertising, it's still really, really hard to get clients, right? And so that's the rub. So it's not so much if you want to win an Amazon advertising, Amazon marketing, Amazon service as a general moving forward, it's not going to be based on your knowledge. That needs to be there. That's an important piece, right? But I would be willing to bet if you take a lot of freelancers that have been doing this for a while and had a few clients and you line them all up against experts, there's going to be deviations in expertise, but there's not a lot of way to really like win there, right? I mean, there are ways to win. There's definitely techniques, and I think nuance to experience and understand, all that does factor in. But I would say if you're going to win, you're going to have to win with branding your own agency. You're going to have to win by making content, right? You're going to have to win by being unique and authentic and a voice that other people are gravitate towards you outside of what you know, or and you got to have some type of special sauce, right? Because there's a sea of people posting about Amazon advertising, and there's a sea of people pounding people's DMs every day, right? Oh, I'm an Amazon, I do Amazon listing A to Z. I probably get 40 of these a day. And so does everybody else, right? And so that playbook might work. You might get a client every 24 months. I don't know, maybe every 6 months. What I'm saying is like, if you're going to go that way, you're going to have to approach it differently. And again, that path down that way is not clearly defined. And so, and I think that goes the same way if it's be Amazon advertising or, Amazon marketing in general, which would be like graphics and SEO. I kind of bucket it that way, promotions, and then Amazon management in general. It's just going to be really hard to win there. Here would be another way to look at it. I would try to find, maybe do affiliate work with. So find Facebook agencies. At this point, every single Google agency does Amazon advertising too, because They want to make the money themselves. Now, clearly they're not experts there, right? But it's going to be tough to pitch them and get them to do it. But like Facebook marketing agencies and stuff like that, maybe you could do their Amazon for them, right? Like that would be a way to do it. You're just going to have to be creative about how you get clients and focus on branding. If you want to go that note, so that if you are posting content, people, Bradley is, I follow lots of entrepreneurs. I'm sure a lot of people do. Bradley's a guy that I like. He's entertaining, fun to listen to. He has a saying, and his saying is, better known beats better every time. So when we're stuck in obscurity, right, we need to look at other niches in the space, right? If we want less friction, or if we're going to knuckle down and try to win in Amazon advertising, Amazon marketing, Amazon management in general, we're really going to have to look at how we're positioning ourselves so that we stand out from the crowd.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree because I also experienced that. If exiting brand wanted to get more client, now they need to stand out.
Right.
If exiting agency wanted to scale their agency, they need to stand out, they need to change their approach, everything from their packaging, from their outreach, etc., to build authority, to build trust before going to give your service to anyone. So let's move on
Yep.
our main topic. So let me ask you what the meaning of marketing maverick you can give me to put on the our podcast title. So how you can describe them for the audience?
This is a really good illustration of positioning, right? It's not necessarily, it's unintentional, right? But when you're thinking about trust, which is something that you brought up, Azifa, which is a really good point. That is the genesis of getting clients, right? And that's really the foundations of branding in general, right? And so if you look at Maverick, like you got to kind of look at like the essence of who you are. Everybody has things, I promise you, that if you leaned into, there's an authentic part of every person. If you find that, then you pull that out and you put that forward, right? And so I am a Maverick is kind of somebody that's like, they're out of the box. They don't follow the herd. There used to be this game Lemmings. I'm old. We're talking old. We're talking like, oh, this is an old PC game, 8088. This is like DOS days, right? And there were these little lemmings with like, the game was like, you would have to direct them and they would just march and either fall off the cliff or go to the end point, right? So every industry has lemmings, right? So everybody does the same things. For the longest time, this was preached. Auto campaign for discovery, harvest your exact match keywords, never run broad match and phrase, right? I ran, as soon as I saw that become an industry standard, I immediately started testing and going hard on broad match, which had great results, right? So it's thinking outside the box. It's, staying outside of the herd and watching the overall landscape. I would say it doesn't mean random chaos. It means calculated disobedience, right? Because Amazon rewards conformity, but it loves outliers, right? And so if you're not an outlier, like there's leverage in things. It would be a really good example of that. When Sponsor Brands video first came out, it was not that much talk about it. Everybody was still talking about that point, I think. Well, DSP has always been a thing, but Sponsor Brands headline and all of these things. And people, there's like, everybody, it's a race to like when Amazon launches a new feature, you probably knows this, Azifa, like everybody posts about the new feature, right? So, but everybody posts about it, nobody's really testing it. And there was a point in time when Sponsor Brands video worked really, really well. Fast forward to today, I've seen CPCs as high as $58. I know some people see $96 clicks. Needless to say, the opportunity has shrunk, right? So that's finding outliers, right? I think the audience targeting layer in campaigns is another arbitrage opportunity. Add the cart layer, the high likelihood to purchase layer, using those things. Those things don't last forever, right? So I would say it's outside looking in. And I just love the underdog. It's who I am as a person, right? And so I've got a chip on my shoulder. It's probably in my head. I would recommend if you can find a chip on your shoulder and stay and keep a healthy frame of mind. It's a lot easier to get through the hard stuff. But yeah, it's off the beaten path. It's not following the crowd. It's asking tough questions. It's having a healthy level of objectivity without criticism. I would say that's a good way to look at it. Like here would be no more going for me for jump off point. So Keyword graduation from discovery campaigns is effective, and it's preached as a best practice because it works, right? But there's another layer to this that I found through experience is that when you move a keyword to a different campaign after it's been running really, really well in the same place for a while, there's a learning curve that happens. So assuming that you can get the same performance, which a lot of times you can, right? I have to spend money to relearn that. I've tested this a bunch of times. If you take the exact CPC of a keyword you move into a new and put it into a new campaign with the same bid strategy, inevitably, from my experience, it doesn't get the same impressions for a while. Like I got to tinker with it, mess with it to get it back to where it is. So I went, wait a minute. Instead of moving the stuff that works, why don't I use reverse graduation of keywords, right? This is my Maverick. This is like that. I'll talk about how I look at things. So instead of me taking the top performers out of the campaign, why don't I take the low performers out and put them in a new research campaign and leave the top performers alone? And then I take my original research campaign and I call that one performance. And that way I don't have to take the winners out. I leave the winners where they're sitting, right? It ends up being, between 5 and 7 keywords, sometimes 3, right? That becomes my new performance campaign. I pull the ones that are struggling into a new campaign, and then I start from scratch and then start increasing the bids and working it from there. So being a Maverick is kind of like, embrace that. If everybody's talking about the same thing, think about what doing the opposite of that, what that looks like. Not being, like a moron about it and just being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, but always have a heavy level of skepticism for whatever like is echoing through the echo chamber. And I think you can find a lot of success that way.
Perfect. Interesting.
Right.
Amazing. So let me ask one more question, which is about you are working in health and wellness category, which I think it is the most saturated or most difficult category for any brand who wanted to come in the space. But most of the time, the brand come in with a unique proposition in their product, and they get some good amount of sale or good amount of position in the market. But the major hurdle, the major bullet point for seller, they wanted when they wanted to scale in the market, they wanted to capture more market share. Then they have facing really high challenges to tackle. So, what do you think? What the approach they need to get, and what the roadmap they need to follow to compete with their big giants, big dogs in the market? So, what the strategy
Yeah.
they use?
Yeah, that gets my juices going, Hazifa. So this is just me. So take this for what it's worth. Everybody probably wants a Coca-Cola or like Pure Protein, right? You look at all these big enterprise brands, and literally, if you were to somehow by some miracle, these are impossible accounts to get because they work with like Pattern and these monolith agencies, right? But those are life changers, right? And so those are like the golden apples on the tree. And to me, yeah, that's exciting. But it's more exciting to be the one that knocks them down a couple of branches, right? And so that's hard. So just that question in general gets me fired up because nothing to me is more exciting than coming in and being, and I've done that a number of times now with my brands. We've came in as the number 2, number 3 player, and there was like vacancies there, and we're able to come in and steal share. This is an important caveat. And so if we look outside of Amazon, if we look at market dynamics in general as a general rule, just look at major industries, right? Let's look at cars in the US, right? Ford was first. Lots of other small companies were making cars at that time, but nobody really challenged them. Does this sound familiar? Until GM came out, right? Then GM and Chevy and then Dodge. So there has to be a market vacancy at the top in order, if you want to become like one of the top players in the place, there has to be a vacancy there. So if there's an established 1, 2, 3, 4, and even 5 player in your niche, you're going to be fighting for the middle, and it's expensive in the middle. So if you're already there, there's things that you can do. But if you're kind of scanning opportunities for industries and markets, like you want to find those types of opportunities where there's a really, really clear number 1 and everybody's fighting for number 2 and 3 and nobody's really like, really put their flag in the sand to claim that spot. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So assuming that you are in a spot where like there is some parity, you know, there's a 1 and a clear number 2, right? But 3, 4, and 5, or whoever it might be that week or month, you have to think outside of like standard SEO and stuff like that. So if we go back to like 2018, 2019, pre-COVID, Amazon was a disaster zone. You could come in with a very minimal amount of expertise and SEO the listings properly and actually put images in the listing that actually were decent, right? And realizing pretty much immediate gains, right? So the playing field's really level there. You're not going to optimize your way to success now. Unfortunately, that's just part of the playbook. You have to do that, but it's really hard to, you know, gain ground that way. So that's when things where you have to find things like, you know, reviews and ratings, I think is a really big pain point. And so that's something that you can do on TikTok and Meta. Like I would recommend agencies doing that. I'm almost finished with the tool. It's called 𝐂𝐸𝐸. I'm actually partnering with Casey, who is the founder of Training Mask, on that. Very, very close to being done, right? So, you know, if you can help your clients find ratings and reviews to improve that, like that should be, this is a good caveat. We spend, and our clients spend how many thousands of dollars on advertising a year? I mean, in some cases, hundreds of millions, right? Yet if you ask a client to spend $5,000 a month, let's say they're spending 50 grand a month. So allocate 10% of their ad budget, take that out of the ads, which I promise won't matter a whole lot. Take that out and just dedicate it to finding reviews, however you can do that. And you make that part of your budget forever. Forever. It's not like I'm going to get 10 reviews. It's forever. If you do that for 8 or 12 months and make a consistent effort there and advocate your clients to do that, that's a good way to gain ground. You're going to have to really move those hard rocks. That to me is like a really, really hard thing that if you're in a competitive niche, you're going to have to start to move in that direction. And unfortunately, you're going to have to find ways to innovate with hard, tangible product differentiation. So there are things that you could do to spin. So this would be a good way to do it, but this is usually short-lived because the product falls on its face. So there's great data dive is like 1, if not 2 in my tech stack, right? And they have an AI brief tool that scrapes all of the reviews and aggregates things based on avatar and what people are saying. We all know this exercise, right? So a lot of times you can find things like, let's say, I don't know. Let's say you have a candle that's for like odor control or something like that. Like it's a niche thing. It's not like necessarily like a sweet smelling thing, but it's like your way to like control odor, right? But everybody else in the niche is talking about how pleasant it smells, and they talk about their scents like lavender and floral and whatever. And they're doing that because they look to the left and right, and everybody else just copies what each other else is doing. Again, this is looking at things like a Maverick, right? You end up figuring out, well, everybody's talking about odor control and odor suppression. That's what they're saying in the reviews. That's what they're saying. Yet nobody's talking about it in the listings, right? You start to build content that way. You start to SEO your title that way. You start to work on your bullets that way. And those things tend to change over time. Sometimes you go into a niche and those things are gone. Like that opportunity has dried up. In those situations, you're going to have to find ways to innovate the product in a tangible, meaningful way that actually addresses the things that people are talking about in a real way, right? And so what would be a good example of this? This would be a clear one. Let's look at, I don't know, creatine gummies or something like that, right? And what you end up figuring out, now this I know from experience in health and wellness, is that taste matters as much, or if not more, as how well it works. Nobody focuses on that. Why do they not focus on it? Because they're looking to the left and right of them. They think everybody cares about it working. And sure they do. But if they don't keep taking it because it tastes like crap, you're not going to win. So nobody focuses on that. Right? And so you look at the drinks and you end up saying, okay, I'm going to have to take some time on this and I'm going to reformulate and it's going to cost me some extra money, but I'm going to make these creatine gummies less sticky and I'm going to make them taste fantastic. And it's going to take time. But if you do that, you will inevitably win because now you're talking about what people care about in listing, and then the product delivers, and then the reviews are good. And so if you're in a competitive space, that's what it's going to take to win moving forward. It's not just dropping. The days of using helium 10 cerebro and finding these opportunities where like there's not a lot of players in their search volume and dropping another product in like the other 2 or 3 products, those days are over. Now, I'm not saying they're over. I'm saying is like, it's a lot harder to do that now. The other thing we need to keep in mind is that China is fast. China, not Chinese sellers. I'm talking about China manufacturer direct sellers, right? And they do launch your stuff on the platform. And so they find these opportunities very, very quickly. So you're going to have to find ways to create like meaningful, tangible, hard product differentiators that kind of give you a while and give you that lead time before China comes in, right? And so that's really what it takes moving forward. I would say understanding the nuance and subtleties of product innovation outside of just dropping in a product because there's search interest there. Does that kind of answer it? I know I kind of went all over the place, but I really wanted to capture the whole meaty thing.
Yeah, you can describe everything very well in a very detailed way. So I don't need to ask as much questions. I just go over the last one, which is the external traffic versus Amazon native ads. What's you think? What's your playbook for health and wellness brand specifically in 2025? What do you think? What most? Yeah. What highest budget we need to spend? Either we need to go external traffic or we need to use Amazon exiting Amazon PPC ads to get as much good result for the brand.
Such a great question. So I would say my pillars are compliance, and you'll see where this is coming in a minute. If you're in health and wellness and supplements, compliance is an absolute frustration point, and people are always getting pulled down. And that being able to toe that line effectively and keep your ads active and keep your listings active and in the game and not getting pulled down all the time, or if you get pulled down, knowing how to handle that to get up quickly, that's really, really important. So that's an important pillar. And my brand manager, Eric, who came with me from Intrinsic, which is the aggregator that I worked for before we got acquired, he's got very, very deep background. He worked at Procter & Gamble for a number of years, Nestle. He's a biologist, right? And so he's very, very deep on innovation and compliance from like big CPGs, from the big CPG sector, right? And so we're able to pull that in as a competitive advantage for my agency. And so I would say that's really, really important. I would say the innovation layer is very, very important to what we do, which is why I don't just do Amazon advertising. We do Amazon full service management, clearly, but where we shine is Amazon marketing, right? And so part of that marketing layer is helping our clients understand market opportunities and co-developing innovations with them that can really disrupt niches and market segments to gain share. So that's layer 2. Okay. Layer 3 is just, there's Amazon advertising. That's important. If you're not winning there, you're not going to win everywhere. I don't need to talk a lot about that. A lot of the strategies I use, I think a lot of people use. I do some things different there, but that's a big lever. And I would say the 4th layer is that you're going to have to drive some type of external traffic source probably at some point, right? And there's lots of ways to do that. Like I think DSP is talked about a lot. I'm definitely, my hot take is I don't love DSP, and that probably puts me in the penalty box. I'll probably never be on at one of these Amazon events, because unless you kind of toot your horn and talk about the stuff that Amazon wants to talk about, you never really get to be in the room with people. And I'm okay with that, right? I'm willing to live with that, because I know in general display advertising. When's the last time you clicked on a display ad and bought, Hazeef? Just tell me. When's the last time? Exactly. It's noisy. It's noise in your face, right? And so, like, if let me put you this way: if I'm talking about front funnel advertising, right, and we're talking about creating awareness doesn't happen until I capture somebody's attention at the bare minimum. Otherwise, it's visual noise on the page, right? So if I'm spending money on the front funnel, I need to capture their attention, and that attention needs to translate to a click. And that's where I'm doubling down. And I don't think display advertising does that effectively. It just doesn't. Even if it's not DSP, this isn't 1998, right? My unpopular opinion on this is this. We know what the best performing placements in search are, Hazeef, but we do. It's clearly sponsored search by miles, and it's not even close. there's only so much inventory there. There's only so much ad inventory, and that ad inventory is expensive. So what Amazon needs to do is they need to keep you spending money, right? And so if you just did sponsored search, you would be profitable and your business would be okay. It's tough to grow your business that way, but people are going to stay there. So they need to invent these placements other places so they can draw your ad spend that way and scale your ad spend. Last time I checked, I don't want to scale my ad spend. I want to scale my business, right? So if I'm looking to scale my business, I'm looking for leverage. So let's talk about that a little bit more. We help broker an influencer relationship with actually our number one brand in our account, and they work in biologics. They like bioenzymatics and stuff like that. And the guy, Brian, the founder of that company, is just a pure entrepreneur in every sense of the word, and he loves innovating. He loves creating projects. So anyway, we end up working with this influencer, and to this day, we didn't actively reach out to her, right? She found us through some other things that we were doing. We were doing other influencer efforts, and we were doing stuff on Amazon, and just by happenstance, she ended up stumbling on. So I have a whole strategy around that, which is beyond the scope of this call. We should talk about that later. But the impact of her video that we didn't even know she posted was significant. We had an ace in the middle of the catalog. They had done okay. I think it was like a 21K a month SKU, right? It was okay, not great. Within the first 7 days of that post, revenue on that ASIN tripled. And we held that halo. It ran at 150% of its standard run rate until we ended up reaching out to her and setting up a relationship 3 or 4 months later and just working with her continuously. And so when I look at that, she's making TikTok videos and meta videos and YouTube shorts. And so that's creating awareness to people that have never seen the brand. So you tell me, is it more profitable to pay an influencer like that 20, 30, or 40 grand a month, which sounds like a lot, right? And turn an ASIN that's 20K a month into 100K a month permanently, or throwing $20,000 a month into the DSP furnace? It might work, it might not work. Let's say it works. When you shut off the DSP, your sales, I probably aren't going to change. Sorry, I know people out there love DSP, but I'll die on this hill. But let's say they do drop. If I got to keep putting money into the machine to maintain my sales, it's hard to scale that way. So when you look at an influencer, the impact's so significant and the algorithmic signals are so profound. If you find a really, really good one that has a really good market fit, and you create enough order velocity acceleration, and the product's actually good, and then you run your PPC in tandem with their posts, you can make sprints on rank that are permanent, right? And so I would say that's probably the fourth layer to how we approach health and wellness.
Perfect. Amazing. I think we have covered almost everything. We can start with the Amazon agency side, and now we can cover up in marketing and what the best thing for brand to scale. Basically, I think, as you mentioned, DSP is not good enough for brand to put their money on that. But most of the time, this depend on the category, and this depend on the product. Maybe sometime the product is actually work in DSP side, because they actually need some peak level video display ad to bring attention, and sometimes it's not work. So I don't have a very I would say a critical point of view on DSP, but I would say if you can try it, if it's work for you, then go over and spend as much as you can. If not work for you, then shut down and focus exiting where you have a good result for your brand. So that's what my point of view. So let's warm up this session, and I believe people are enjoying, and you also enjoy this session. You have shared really amazing insight, and yeah, that's great. So, John, please let's give a last your thoughts, yeah, your checklist for the audience or for the seller who wanted to scale their brand on Amazon, and what checklist you wanted to recommend them in our last session to end it.
I would say my hot take would be this. And I think I can make this a worthwhile point. And I'm really going to harp and preach about what I call nuanced innovation, right? And understanding shadow demand, which is something we can talk about at a later date. And so if we talk about nuanced innovation, that's how you're going to win moving forward. And I understand capital's tight, but let me paint a picture for you. So listen very closely, brand owners and agency owners that are trying to talk to your brand owners. It's hard, right? Let's say it's hard and you're treading water right now. Okay. And let's fast forward 18 months and it's a slow decline. And I've seen this so many times I can't count. How many thousands of dollars are you pumping into chasing, you know, trying to scale ads, spending all these different things? If you add all that up for the next 18 months, you're probably looking at tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. Well, instead of like getting all the way to the end of that road and realizing, okay, now I'm on the verge of being done because I'm stagnating and my catalog's stale and the niche is only getting more competitive. You need to stay nimble. You need to make it a goal to launch, you know, at the very least, one new strong innovation a year that's niche adjacent. What do I mean by niche adjacent? Yoga mat's the easiest one. I always use this example, but it's the easiest one for me to illustrate. You say, let's say it's 19 something, right? And you sell a yoga mat on Amazon, and hot yoga becomes like a trend, right? So you notice that hot yoga is a trend. You sell yoga mats, and there's not that many people selling hot yoga mats, if there is any, right? That needs to be your innovation. And outside of that, you need to look at the use case and application of it. What's going to be happening when they're using it? Well, they're going to be sweating terribly. So you maybe need to make sure that the foam's antimicrobial, right? You need to make sure that it's hopefully it's moisture wicking. It doesn't maintain a layer of moisture on top of the mat. So you do those types of things, you innovate that, and then you drop that into the market, right? Now, I wish I had an answer for everybody where it's like, listen, just spend more on sponsored brands. I wish I could say that. I wish I could tell you, if we just came in today and we put more money in sponsored brands and leveraged display and we fired up video ads, I wish I could tell you that in all like honesty and say that that's going to turn the corner. It's not going to for 95% of you, 90% of you, right? Unless you're one that's if you're already killing it, right? And you're on a 30, 40, 50, 60% growth rampant and you're not using those things, that stuff's going to work. If you're kind of like grinding away in first gear and you can't get any momentum, it's going to be tough to turn the corner with just using more ad gadgets, right? Like that is my hard truth for the day. But I promise you that hard truth, the people that do act on that, they're going to find themselves winning.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So yeah, now let's warm up this. Hope everyone enjoyed this session. So we can see you in the next one.
Great chat today.